Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Eastchester Union Free School District podcast. We're now in our fifth episode and our second episode that we are visually recording, and I am thrilled to introduce our Director of Facilities, Elliot Sheldon. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, absolutely. And before we start, I'm just going to give the shout out right now. So I direct the fall comedy. I'm an advisor in the Eastchester High School Players Club and one of the directors in the club. And we did a very difficult show this last fall. We were trying to figure out some logistics with the space in the theater, and you were right there with the entire team. And it's just something that I'm going to never forget because, you know, we were working out some things how it was going to work for the show. And I do want the community to know we're in very, very good hands with you in this position.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
My pleasure.
If you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so obviously my name's Elliot Sheldon. Came to the district in July, had a few consulting days prior to that, learn about the district, but, you know, I started full-time in July. Prior to that, I worked in facilities management for Hyde Park Central School District for a number of years and then some private contracting firms before that. So I'm pretty versed in construction and facilities management. You know, ultimately, I'm a family man. I got 4 kids, a beautiful wife, and I live in Dutchess County, and my kids are active in sports. I coach the lacrosse team as well, so that's exciting. It's starting in a couple weeks, so, you know.
So, right, this isn't your first rodeo.
No, not with the school district. So, you know, I mean, Eastchester is its own community, just like every district is, so you got to learn the lay of the land, learn, you know, who's who and where's what, and, you know, figure out, you know, how everything operates. You know, essentially, you know, facilities management in schools is very similar district to district. It's just figuring out how each one of them operates.
For sure, for sure. And when you make that adjustment, you know, I know you were just saying to understand how things work and whatnot, do you feel like there was a big adjustment going from your prior district to this one?
There's certainly adjustments. You know, some of the most notable one is where I came from, the community was active in the school district. Here, just given, I think, the geographic area, the school is more of a focal point to the community than in other areas because they use them for their little leagues or soccer leagues or basketball leagues, just because there's not as many spaces as there is in other places. You know, you're a very tight-knit community, very landlocked. You know, upstate is a little different than here. Yeah. You know, there's some geographic things like that. But, you know, just learning how everything operates is very, you know, you got to learn that with no matter what district you work in.
Yeah, for sure. And it's you know, that you mentioned that. One of my close friends, he came down we had to film something up in New Hampshire, and he came down to pick me up before we went up. And he wasn't too familiar with the town, so when I would always speak about my town, he had so much more of a rural idea of what it was, and when he picked me up, he couldn't get over how populated it was, right. how landlocked it was. He even said to me, "This reminds me of like a borough of what it's turned into."
It could be compared similar to, probably. Yeah. You know, how many miles from New York City are we? Like 13?
About, probably, yeah.
12 miles, something like that, till the Bronx.
And it just, populations just move up, so.
Right.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, was your prior district bigger or smaller than Eastchester?
They had more square footage in buildings. They had roughly 500 more kids, but it was a similar size. You know, we're about 3,000 kids. That district was about 3,500.
Gotcha.
They had one more elementary school than we did.
Okay.
And the central office was different. It was a much larger building. It housed more people in it. We had central receiving in that location for the district. So, you know, just like I said, you know, every district's a little different, but essentially facilities management in the buildings is all similar.
For people who don't know, you're the director of facilities. I mean, it is, right, it's within the title, but if you just want to elaborate really quickly to the audience, you know, a little bit more of what kind of goes into your job and you know, what you're specifically doing.
Sure. So, I mean, I think the on-paper version is that the Director of Facilities ensures that we have a warm, dry, clean, well-lit classroom for staff and students. But it's much more than that, right? We maintain the buildings in their entirety, from the boiler rooms to the roofs. We maintain all the sports fields typically, and the grounds in general. We have multiple staff members that have different jobs. We have maintenance mechanics, laborers, all the way from cleaners to head custodians, a messenger, maintenance four-person, clerical staff in the office, and myself. So, it's a department comprised of about 30 to 35 individuals that ensure that this place opens every day. Most staff start around 6 a.m. in the morning, and some of the buildings are open to as late as 11 p.m. We ensure that, school operates every day. If it snows, we're here cleaning it. If there's floods, we're here making sure the basement's pumped out or whatever the case may be. That's our job. And ultimately, I think what everybody needs to remember, myself included, is that we're all different types of civil servants. We're here to serve the students, the staff, and the community.
I'll ask you at the end of this, what have been your most wild encounters? Not necessarily here because it's been so recent, but in your time as a director of facilities, because I'm sure that there's a lot of variables that can pop up.
Yeah, but we'll have to think about that one.
For sure.
Make sure it's appropriate for here.
If you could just kind of, in your time here so far, if you could just kind of comment on things that Eastchester has, I mean, even for the people that might not know, how many fields we have and whatnot, if you could just kind of give a broad overview of the most important facilities that we have and their positive attributes.
Sure. So, I think we could start with the baseball and softball field at the high school that was recently renovated, part of the capital project. I think we'll get into that in a little bit, but you have two beautiful fields here at the high school, along with your athletic complex, which has the track and field that accommodates football, lacrosse, soccer, and potentially some other sports that could be played on there. Over at Ann Hutch, we have a Little League softball, baseball field, as well as soccer fields. And over at Greenvale, we have a full-size baseball field, as well as we could put a full-size soccer field on that location. And then at Waverly, we have like call it a peewee or a t-ball size baseball field. Those are our fields.
I forget the official year, but I think when I was in middle school, it was finished. Handle Field?
Yeah, Handle Field's next to Greenvale.
Right.
I believe that project was done probably about 10, 15 years ago.
Is it part of the district?
No, the town owns that.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a town-owned run facility. I do believe we have some shared services with them, though. So, like, some of their little leagues and soccer leagues use some of our fields, and I believe at times we use their fields too. I think football practice is there at times.
And I remember when I was a freshman, like there would be a lot of varsity games at Handle Field, especially like night games because they had the lights.
Yeah, or I think modified football as well.
And from your experience, the fields, they're good?
Well, I think some of them need some attention, and we're trying to address those needs through our regular, operating budget. Like I said, the baseball softball field was recently redone, resodded, beautiful turf out there, new irrigation system. We just actually put a new controller on it, so from my phone I can now turn the sprinklers on and off.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty wild. Technology plays a big role in what we do now. Greenvale, recently we worked with the soccer league to kind of recondition some parts of the field. How in front of the goal gets worn out. So we're working to address those needs. And then also at Ann Hutch and Waverly, the Little Leagues are very actively involved in helping maintain those fields too,
for sure.
For their kids and our students ultimately.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. We could come back to some of the improvements in a sec, but transitioning kind of interior to the interior, how are the state of our classrooms? How is the state of the infrastructure inside our schools? If you just want to give an update to the community.
Well, I think they're constantly improving. So with every summer, there's small projects that the facilities department handles internally. To name a few, this past summer, we transitioned a classroom, or it was actually an office space at the high school, into the FSP suite now. and we're constantly upgrading things. Like, for example, the guidance office in the middle school got some attention this summer. This coming summer, we're going to do some work over at Greenvale, transitioning, opening what was 2 classrooms into 1, and then moving some special education classrooms down to another section of the building that's more appropriate.
Gotcha.
So, these are just little internal projects that we handle every summer. Again, constantly improving things. Last summer, we took part of the boys' locker room in the middle school and transitioned it into kind of a strength and conditioning room over there. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out. It was a pretty cool space.
I have, and I'm going to comment on all of these improvements because I've been lucky enough to film in every single one that you've mentioned so far. So,
as well as many, just regular office renovations and moving staff, really to accommodate the needs of the buildings. But, like this space is a beautiful space that we're in now. This was renovated in 2016, I believe.
Yeah.
So, the district's in communication with its architect to constantly update, what our priorities are. So we're in the process of evaluating, where are each classroom. I know you're going to talk about the capital project in a little bit, and I could talk kind of to where some of the classrooms are being renovated, but we're looking to, identify what rooms are not and putting some sort of plan together, or at least identifying what those are.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
Going forward, we know what we need to do.
Well, no, we could go right into it. I just wanted to comment on everything that you mentioned that did get improved. I went in the fall to the FSP room, filmed in there for a couple hours, and the room is fantastic. The room is fantastic. Same thing with the middle school guidance office. That was not here when I was here, and that office is beautiful. And the strength and conditioning room I also filmed in for the middle school, and that's also a great space. And what's so impressive about those 3 rooms that you mentioned, the improvements, they're so specifically tailored to what is being done there.
Right.
And I think that's, I was able to see that when I was filming within there. The FSP room, it allows for all the space for the students that need that space. It gives it to them. There's a ton of space in the strength and conditioning room and the guidance office, which is pretty impressive too, because there isn't a lot of land to build on here. So the fact that the school has been able to expand the way it has since I left I don't know how it's done, but that's why we have an architecture firm, I guess.
I'm sure the architects figure that one out.
The improvements tailored to the specific needs, it's been very, very impressive. What you mentioned, the capital project.
Yeah, we have a bond that was passed in 2022. It's primarily security and infrastructure work. So it's broken into 5 phases. So the district could, accommodate the construction, right? We got $75 million out there. It's not feasible to do that all in one summer. It's really not feasible to shut down every building because we have like I said, we have a high level of community use. The town rec uses it for camp in the summertime, in addition to our own, summer school educational needs.
Right.
So phase 1 was primarily field renovations here at the high school, like I talked about, the softball, baseball field. Phase 2, which happened last summer, the summer I came in on, was primarily the security vestibules, which you could see as you walk around the district now. Every building has a true security vestibule. Also included in that, which we're working on now, is the door hardening project. So doors are being replaced district-wide. They're going to have scan badge access to every classroom, every corridor facing wall, essentially. Has students in it will have to be scanned into, other than like a bathroom. So any educational space will have card access. So that's ongoing now. The doors have started at the elementary schools. We'll be moving to the high school, middle school shortly. Not every door will be replaced if it's newer. So potentially in this section, it will just be the hardware itself because the doors are new, fire rated, good jams. No reason to replace them. Phase 3, which we're coming up to this summer, really starts a lot of the infrastructure work. So the high school, middle school HVAC system will be replaced. The positive thing is, not by the end of this summer, but by the end of this project in total, all instructional spaces should have air conditioning. So that's a home run.
Very important.
That's a home run.
Yeah, that's big because we want students to be in the proper temperature climates when they learn.
Well, yeah, I think it allows students to focus better. But I mean, you probably remember, and I do, sitting in the classroom sweating, my hands sticking to paper and everything else as a kid.
You didn't want to be there.
It was
right?
part of growing up, right?
Exactly.
So, so this summer's phase 3 starts. Primarily, the middle school will get its univent replacement. Chillers and things like that are being ordered now. So, realistically, air conditioning probably won't be on until the following year.
Okay.
And then the following summer of 25, HVAC in this building will start. They're going to do a lot of prep work, throughout the school year on shift to get ready for it, but the actual unit replacement won't happen until summer. In addition to that, we're doing work at Ann Hutch this summer, major abatement and prep work for their future HVAC, which will come the year after in phase 4.
So you have a lot on your plate.
And then phase 5.
Oh.
We have
way
5
too soon.
phases. So phase 4, addresses accessibility as well.
Right.
And then phase 5 is accessibility in HVAC at the remaining elementary school. So you could tell there's a lot going on.
The HVAC work, is that all air conditioning, or are there other? I mean, does some of it include heating?
Yeah. So primarily, the systems right now in a lot of schools are steam, and they're being converted to hydronics. There's some energy saving measures in that conversion, as well as the ability to cool. So what we're going to have is a 2-pipe system. Try not to get too technical.
For
but
sure, yeah.
Basically, we're either going to be in heating or cooling. So at some point in the spring, we're going to say, we no longer need heating. We're going to turn the heating system off, and we'll be able to activate the chillers and then start pumping chilled water throughout the building, which will mean you now have air conditioning
That's
in your
fantastic.
classrooms.
Well, that's great to hear.
So it should be a great thing for the district.
If students are more comfortable, they're going to do better.
Right. And I mean, ultimately, with air conditioning, we're probably going to meet the needs of most IEPs and accommodations that staff and students may have, and not have to play musical air conditioners throughout the building, where things like the old electrical service may not be able to support what we actually need to do.
Right.
So having a centralized system is a better way of going about it.
And then coming into something like that, the process that's already happening, does that take a lot to be caught up to speed with what's happening, or is it kind of more straightforward with something kind of already in place?
I really had to learn how the district operated, how the department here operated. Like I said, facilities management's facilities management. It's just learning the processes and policies and ways of operations of each district is a little bit different. You got to learn it. So going back to the capital project, I had to learn what was going on in phase 2, what I needed to know. We had some critical dates for some stuff. When I first started, the abatement actually started a few days before me because it was critical to get that done for summer school. And then there was work that had to get done because, like, for example, the Waverly security booth, the work out here in front of the high school, like all that had to be done. Otherwise, it was going to impact how the school operated, and we didn't want that as a district. And then learn about the other phases. So phase 3 was in the design phase with the architect. And basically, that was getting ready to be submitted to SED for approval. And then they picked up phase 4 as well. So they started designing phase 4 and submitting that to SED, which has been in there since February now. So, just to give an idea of how the whole process works, basically it takes like a year or so to plan a bond. And I think in Eastchester's case, I kind of got the history of it. It took a couple years. The pandemic played some roles in some things, slowed some stuff down. The bond passed in 22. At that point, that's when the real work starts. Your architectural firm, initially is hired to evaluate what your needs are, but they're just giving you the information. They're not actually designing. I mean, they may design conceptual ideas, but they're not going in and saying, that's this unit, this is this unit. We need to marry these systems together. Here's the size pipe we need, the engineering of everything. None of that happens until the bond passes. So the bond passes, and then we have these 5 phases we have to get out. And, phase 1 was, I think, a little simpler because there was more athletic fields. It was, civil engineering, not as many complex systems as inside the building. So they're able to get that to SED quickly. And they got that out, and they started that in the fall of 22. Come summer of 23, phase 2 starts. That all had to be submitted. That was probably submitted in the summer, fall of 22. They bid it in the winter, spring of 23. Construction starts summer. So we're in that phase now with phase 3 and phase 4. Phase 3 just bid. We're starting that this summer. Phase 4 is with SED. And when I say with SED, it's the New York State Education Department. They review all your plans. And sometimes you put it into a queue, and it could take them up to 25 weeks to actually review your drawings. So it's like a hurry up and design and then wait for SCD to analyze your stuff, ask questions, go through their engineering review before you get approval to move forward.
And that's all until it passes. Nothing is...
Until SCD gives you approval on the plans and specifications, you cannot bid the job. If you're approaching your review date, you're going through comments, you could kind of release the drawings for bidding purposes, but you cannot award anything until you get approval from SCD.
I see.
You could kind of, at that end piece right there when they're going, because once they actually pick it up, it's normally 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
But the hurry up and wait process, the 20 weeks, 25 weeks, it's been up to 52 weeks at times.
Right.
In past experiences, that you have a project that you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But you don't have approval. Oh, one other notable project that
Please.
wasn't capital was we did the playgrounds at all 3 elementary schools.
Yes.
That happened this past summer too. So, prior to me coming, the previous director of facilities and the principals picked out the playgrounds, and then we had we were shooting to get them in for the summer, but just with lead times, it fell into the fall. But we were able to get those done, just before Thanksgiving.
Which was a huge accomplishment. There was a ribbon cutting ceremony for them.
For each one, yes, it was exciting.
That's awesome. And in the second episode of the podcast, I had both Annette Keene and Joanna Napolitano on, and I had them together, and they did mention the playgrounds at the end of that episode.
Awesome.
And I was asking them questions about it, and what was fascinating to me was that I had no idea how much goes into a playground.
Oh, yeah.
In the selection of the equipment.
Colors.
The design. And Joanna was telling me part of the decision-making is choosing equipment that will work on certain muscle groups for each student. And there was all this science behind it.
There's a lot behind it, yeah. I actually put some in my last district, too, and it's... You go through this process, and you never realize that there's so many options for playground equipment and even adaptive equipment for the students that need that. There's a lot of thought behind it. We did choose to do the poured-in-place rubber flooring, so all our playgrounds are ADA accessible. It's a really awesome playground at each building.
Yeah, no, they look fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to mention in terms of what is being worked on or what needs to be improved?
No, I mean we've gone through a lot. Notable projects were the FSP suite this year. We did the trainer's office at the high school right next to the big gym. That's just being utilized now. We're currently working on Kayla's garden, refurbishing that over at Greenvale. We did the boys' locker room at the middle school. We did clean up the garden at Ann Hutch as well. We upgraded some irrigation throughout the district. We fixed the wall on Bellevue Ave over by Waverly. That was an issue with some of the neighbors, and we restored it so it looks nice again. We recently installed the sundial at Waverly.
Oh.
And I think actually the kids are really excited for this last one, the Gaga Pit at Ann Hutch. That just came in.
What is that?
The Gaga Pit.
I forgive my ignorance.
It's like a octagon.
Okay.
it's made out of like wood slats with some posts, and the kids play ball inside it. It's out of this world fun, I guess.
Okay. I'm trying to visualize it.
I could show you a picture later.
But it sounds like
Yeah,
a blast.
the PTA was nice enough to donate it to the district.
Oh, that's incredible. And where is that? That's at Ann Hutch?
Yeah, it's right outside, like, if you walk all the way straight out the end of the building.
Okay. I'm trying to. So on
Kind of by the softball field.
Oh, by the softball
Like
field.
behind, next to the softball field, right out the end of the building.
So it's not going to be on the playground. It's going to be.
No, it's separate.
Gotcha.
It's kind of in the grass area where the kids play.
I see.
They keep it separate from the playground.
I mean, to make that playground more impressive than it was growing up, because I love that playground.
So the one we took out was the one you played on?
Yeah. And also too, right? All these years, I'm just thinking, oh, a slide's a slide. You just go down it. It's like, no, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different types of slides.
The world seen through a kid's eyes, I guess.
Exactly.
But could you name some type of positive with these improvements that, someone from the outside might not see or understand?
I think ultimately with the capital projects, there's going to be a lot of enhancements district-wide, right? So in general, we are upgrading the HVAC district-wide. But as part of that, there's things like ceilings, floors that are being reconditioned. So similar to this space, if it's getting a new ceiling, it's going to have much better lighting than it used to. There was a directive by the board to remove as much asbestos as possible. So we're getting rid of old floors, removing any asbestos in the walls as we open them to do the work that we need to. So overall, we're improving the general quality of the buildings.
Right.
And that's what I was talking about evaluating earlier. A lot of things are getting done, but not everything's getting done. So we're going to evaluate what wasn't done so we could prioritize that for something in the future.
What are some things that might not be on the radar, that might be on your radar, on the school's radar, going forward that potentially could improve the educational setting?
I would say ultimately, what's on my radar is to bring equity across the district, right? If we did a ceiling in this room, we want to make sure that we're coming up with plans to address the rooms that didn't get them. If you got old flooring or the tiles are worn out or the carpet's old, we want to look and prioritize which ones are worse and take care of those, as we can, or, potentially in a future project. So I think constantly evaluating where you're at. It's just like your home, As soon as you do the roof, it doesn't mean your house is perfect for the next 20 years. You might have, old bathrooms, old windows, old kitchen. The list goes on and on. You got to, continuously, improve on what you have. So I think evaluating that, ultimately, we got to make sure we maintain our sports fields. The district did put a big investment into their sports program here by putting in the turf field, but the turf only lasts so long. We got to make sure we come up with a plan to replace that in the future.
Right.
I don't have the answer as to what that is yet, but it's on my radar to make sure that we do pay attention to those things. Everything
that you do is one of those things where you don't realize it until it's not there.
Right. So I mean, some things that I've noticed just working in the schools, not just our schools, but schools all over the place. You don't realize how important the custodial staff is to the building. The things that they do that don't come up in their job description. For example, at the elementary schools, nowhere in the job description does it say to put that little straw that comes on the high C thing into the hole, take it out of the wrapper and put it in the hole.
Right.
You don't know how many times a day I see a custodian helping a kid out with their juice, or just in general, helping kids in general, with their daily activities. I don't know if you know Mr. Tony Hansen. He's retiring this year.
I know Tony, yeah.
He's at about 30 years with the district. He's a great guy.
He was here when I was a student. So,
yeah, right? He went to Waverly, and he was probably the head custodian then.
Yep.
And, Tony's going to be greatly missed. I think everybody shares that opinion with me. but Tony's in the lunchroom with the smallest kid, and he's one of the biggest guys we got.
Yeah.
And he's helping kids open their sandwich bags, putting the straws in their juice boxes, and cleaning up all day long. That's his job, But like nowhere does it say that help kids with straws in your job description. But he does it all day, every day, and he loves it.
The custodial staff, yes, what they do, the unsung heroes. When I was directing the fall comedy this last year, we were moving stuff out like the backstage door, or we were bringing something in, and we were either like bringing wood in or something for the set, and a squirrel had gotten in, and
Was Steve here that day? Yeah, I
He
remember
was
him
here.
telling me about a squirrel running around the building trying to chase it out.
And Steve and I think George were able to. They got the squirrel and they got it out. So
Wild.
no,
It happens to the best of them, right?
It does. But no, you're totally on point. The custodial staff is incredible.
But some other notable retirements I want to
Please.
give a shout out to. We got Ronaldo over at Ann Hutch is retiring this year. He's been with us about 5 years. It's second career for him, but he's going to retire this summer. Leroy Prescott, he's been with us a long time.
Leroy, he's retiring.
Leroy's retiring this year. He's going to be missed as well. He's been here a long time. And then Joe Filardi, 41 years with the district, is going to retire this June.
Joe's another one that was here when I was here. Yes.
Well, Joe's been here since probably he left high school. I think he went to high school here. He's a great guy. Everybody loves him. Everybody knows Joe.
Yeah.
But he's going to enjoy his retirement soon.
No, Joe's great.
So-
They're all fantastic. All of those custodians will be greatly missed. And, yeah, very big shoes to fill
Yes.
because it's not an easy job.
No, none of them.
No.
And in general, I think a lot of people don't realize just how much goes into operating a district of this size. We have over 500,000 square feet. You have millions of dollars in assets here that we maintain. And, if it wasn't for the men and women that come to work every day, we wouldn't have what we have. Or things wouldn't look as nice as they look. They really do a great job around here.
No, they do a fantastic job. Another thing I wanted to bring up, too, is that have you noticed, because to me, for example, like the baseball field, I'm sure you're familiar now with Dom Cesari,
Yep.
right, the legendary baseball coach. That field means so much to so many people. Have you gotten a sense of that?
Oh, certainly. I think there's a great sense of community pride here, and more than just baseball.
The same too with the stage, the theater. That place is sacred to me.
It was recently renovated, is my understanding, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was, and that's another perfect example of not knowing, not knowing something until it's either not there, or then when you get it, you realize, in the thick of it, you're like, oh wow, this makes a world of difference. I mean, recently the theater, new lights were installed, so I guess when I was in the school, my old legendary high school director John Gordiak, he had like the gels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what specifically they're called, but
Yeah, they're incandescent type lights. They're
right.
the future's in the LED.
And now the fact that they're all LED and,
Yeah.
and whatnot, that's a change that I see. I'm like,
It's
oh
a
my
great
goodness.
space, and,
Yeah.
and when they preserved it, they really did a nice job because they kind of, they modernized a lot of things, but they were able to preserve like the historic appearance of the space.
Absolutely.
You got the beautiful chairs in there, the detail work on the cornice and everything around the proscenium.
Right.
Is beautiful.
Yeah.
Really is. And we continue to upkeep it. Every summer the staff is in there painting what needs to be painted, carpet cleaning, everything, keeping it up to today's standards.
You've done a fantastic job. We're very, very appreciative of everything that you've done so far. I know you've only been here 7-8 months, but it's still moving in a direction that, again, for someone like me who's in the building every day, I'm able to see not only the maintenance, but all of the improvements that are happening in real time. And it's tremendous to see, and the effect is certainly present.
No, I appreciate it. And, I have to give credit where credit's due, and that's to the staff, the men and women that come in this place every day and do this for the district.
Well, Elliot, thank you so much. look forward to the next episode,
Thank you.
whenever that is.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.